So it's a typical jQuery mobile site. In fact, I have a small application in my phone which I exported this particular application as an iOS application already, because using a phone gap, or maybe which I was talking about, there is one more additional content which I have added. The entire HTML what you have just written can be ported to a native application uh, using certain techniques. In fact, not in this. I think in Android phone I have added. We have to go up to that stage. I cannot share the screen to everybody, but at least try to show you. So this is same application I have just ported to an Android application. So it is running on my phone as an individual application. So whatever you are writing, it is not going to be running in a browser itself. It could be running as a standalone device. I think I have already added a login based one. Without login it doesn't work. So we have to first create this particular application as a browser based, then we'll find a solution to make it work in a mobile phone, be it Android, be it iOS, because that's the entire benefit of writing everything in HTML5 and JavaScript. We have an option to export this application into a natively running phone so that this application could be installed. When you open your phone in a launcher, you'll see the application icon. By clicking it, the application comes and it works as if a natively installed application. So that level we can take this application so far whatever we have written, but at present we have to get used to UI development and page transition, and how to handle the data and how to add various states, effects. And once we are fine with that, then final part is to just export. I'm just giving the word export because I'm not going to teach you like how Android, how to write it, because it's just an export option. We run some code and it will create an Android project, and then we simply create a Android packaging APK. So that level, because then other side, how to write from the scratch in the native side itself starts from maybe the coming month. We are going to learn the entire native level application using Java programming language. So maybe at the end we will see that part. First thing, here we do not have any elements or anything which where we need to take the data to a first page or second page or something like that. So just display offline content. So up to this we are pretty comfortable. Now, so this application contains 3 pages, I remember from yesterday's example. Two pages being defined in the same HTML itself. So I think this one and this page both defined in a index.html itself as two different div blocks as defined as a data role defined as page, whereas the link called settings defined in a second individual or external HTML file, but still treated as a local DOM, but we somehow managed to take the data or display the data, take the user. Now if I have an input field, I type something, say hello, how are you, and when I click the button, that data whatever I typed should be taken and displayed here. So this is a simple scenario what I want to see, because I want to take it in my understanding, or the user who is using the application, his understanding, he is typing the content or typing some data in page 1, whereas he is seeing the same data in the page 2. Though the scenario is quite simpler, but in a normal HTML without hosting the data it is not possible. It's impossible typically. Without a server or anything involved, you cannot send the data from one page to another unless you use a local storage. Of course, local storage again JavaScript comes. Without having a dependency over JavaScript, it is very important for a HTML content to take the data between the pages, because that would require a server environment and should be running through HTTP. cannot run through a folder system, cannot send the data between the pages. That's what I was talking. HTTP is a stateless protocol because it doesn't know what happened after serving the page, and when it disconnect from the server, again I need to send the data in order to reproduce the second page with additional data. So in order to overcome, we only have an one solution, which is nothing but the JavaScript. Handle the page transition, and after page is ready, display the data locally from your, local storage or any DOM or something like that. First thing we have to produce, maybe I need to add an input text for the page 1. I think instead of, we have a link already here. I'm going to keep any value, placeholder I'll add. Let's see how it looks like before. Okay, there is the input text. This is a link, we'll leave it. We'll add one more submit button. So href itself, according to jQuery mobile, is a button. So you will see what is the destination it is going to take. And if you define data role instead of class UI button, this will also work. Button. Instead of defining class UI button externally add the skin using what you call CSS. Whereas data role, it is a jQuery mobile specific, so it converts the href or your hyperlink into a button based one. I would recommend this part quite safer. So we don't want to do much on the class or modify the CSS part, because CSS exclusively I'm going to reserve only for theming, skinning, coloring, and other than that I don't want to use that. So there is a button. So I will be typing, say, something. I'll be typing, when I click submit, this data should be displayed in the second page. The scenario is quite simpler as it looks like. So how to display the content in second page? As of now, I'll just do the same thing. I won't display in the second page itself, page 2. It has taken me to the page 2, but it is not displaying. Maybe I'm not calling the value, so I'm going to give an ID. Name field. This is we have already done jQuery 1. So when the user click on submit, I want to detect what do you say that some ID we can give, or still I just want to prevent the JavaScript part, but if I notice in this case there is no point, there is no hook to identify when the page 2 has got loaded, so that I can display the particular content whatever I typed here. Maybe in the page 2 here I can have a div to distinguish a different ID. So just name field value I want to display here. But I don't know how to display in this case, because typically in the previous condition we would either click a button, the button is clicked and something will happen. In this case the href, no idea when the button is clicked. So I may have to either use a button instead of href. Otherwise there is a age old technique we already have, starting the JavaScript block. It's a jQuery ready already, so I have to make sure my document is ready. Document ready tells the entire DOM is loaded. Otherwise, because I am defining this particular block at the top of the script block, so it is very important to have a document ready in order to identify anything happen to a DOM. So all DOM should be properly loaded. So it is better to call a document ready. So in this case, a button is getting clicked called an ID. So dollar. I want to check whether it is listening or not. Just want to say something gets clicked. I want to check whether it is showing or not. Experiment. Okay, let me make it slightly bigger. I need to see them. Okay, so it's detecting as I click the hyperlink. Of course, it is treated as a button now. So when I click it, I could notice, okay, something gets clicked. Okay, in this case, read the value of a DOM called name field. So I'm going to say, and some can placeholder it. For better clarity, we'll check that whether it is printing or not. Each and every state it is advisable to check. So as the user click on the button, you have to make sure whether you could read the DOM ID called name field, whatever it's being typed. It is nothing but input text. Yeah, it prints. So no problem. And the data is fine. Now I want to display the content. That is exactly here. Name field value inside I want to display. It's a div tag. It's a box one. So it's not input field anymore. So I need to use HTML, and whatever the user has typed simply displayed over there. Maybe we can prefix something. So I see the content in the second page displaying. That is already some sort of dummy content is also there. So things are fine. It's not something so difficult as I expected. So whatever I type on the first page could easily displayed in the second page. But there's no point of sharing it because I do have another page. Settings. What if I want to display the content whatever typed here instead of this page to this page. Of course, we can do the same strategy, but the problem may be this scenario, both the DOMs, the page 1 and page 2, were in the same page, nothing but HTML or index.html itself. Whereas the settings was in the second external page. So it is not in the same page anymore. So we have to see whether that is going to cause any problem. We'll identify. So instead of page 2, I'm going to call settings.html. I'm going to go to the settings page. We'll change the DOM to the page. So this is, I changed hyperlink to a different page because it was a previously hash page 2. Now it is an external page. When I click, the same data should be taken, and when it finds a DOM called name field value, should display over there. We'll have to make sure this DOM is available here. I simply move the DOM here. Let's see how things go. Nothing is there. It's not coming. It should have printed. It's not printing. But whereas it was working perfect if I put the same DOM ID here, instead of external page, if I give inline page, so again I didn't refresh. I wrongly updated, I hope. Sorry. It works here. So scenario 1 works if the page is defined inside the same HTML itself. I have no problem of taking the data displaying in another page. Whereas if an external page is called, the behavior is same. As it loads the page, it also loads the second page even though it is external, but the data doesn't display. The very clear obvious reason here is because it is just a kind of spoof. That's all I can say, because the page 1, page 2 both are part of the single DOM called body. So in that case, no problem of accessing those DOMs and transferring the data from 1 to 2. Simply we use the UI as if it loads the second page. It is nothing actually. The very single page itself contained both the DOMs. Has no problem to cast the data or display the data in another page, as we understand. But the problem comes if I try to access the external page instead of inline DOM page. So we have to fix that, and we have to see if there is any fixes available to do that. It doesn't display anyway, so as I understand. Before doing that, I'd like to also add there is one more option called data transition slide, a small animation. Just slides. There are 4 or 5 type of transitions available. I think it's there in my the document as well. Slide, flip, and there are a couple of other options are there. Let me see what are the attribute reference. Slide, slide up, slide down, pop, fade, flip. So we can use such. I think I blocked the slide up. Slightly coming. So such a transition also you can put in use. If you define in data transition, that transition also will work. It gives you a kind of a native look and feel, because some of Android phone or iPhone may have some sort of transition between moving between the app pages. So similar transition you can add it, whatever you prefer. Okay, let us go back to the fix what we were working on. So the problem right now, I need to find a solution to send the data between a page to another page when it comes to an external page loaded. So the settings has already contains the required DOM so that it can receive the value and have it displayed. But this DOM, we are not sure when it is loaded. To make that happen, I'm going to need one more observer method, observer or binder method, or whatever we call in JavaScripting, which keep on listen certain actions performed. Of course, this document ready itself and a kind of a binder or observer, because the moment DOMs are ready, it receives a notification or immediately saying that okay, all DOMs are received. So it just bind with the document and knows the status of the document. So when the DOMs are loaded, it immediately notifies us using the function called ready, and then we use it. A similar thing we also have here. See, I remember it. I'm using a generic function, generic observer, like the same can be used on within quotation ready also. There is one object called page container before change, slightly longer because this is how the document talks. It was before page before load, but right now they made it quite longer. All are lowercase. Page container is an object in jQuery mobile which knows all the pages of your application. So a page container nothing but a wrapper, or in other word I can say a page container is nothing but a body, because within the body only all the pages are getting loaded. So page container before change means just let me know, just the change of thing happen, please let me know so that I can get the data from one container and transfer the data to another container. So for that purpose I'm going to use this particular uh, binder, and I'm going to use a callback method so that it notifies. As per jQuery document, it contains 2 arguments. One is event, another one is UI. It could be any name, but it will contain objects which is required for UI. First part, I need to know what are all they. So I'm going to put what is the event, and when it is called we have to identify. Remember, it's a binder method, so whenever change happens between the page container, it immediately notify you. But still we yet to arrive the exact solution, but let's see how things work. Sorry, I refreshed in the wrong page. Okay, actually already couple of logs are printed even though I haven't done anything. The part 1 is our observer working, our binder working. It also already received page container before change some sort of events, because chances are there loading this particular page itself may have caused this particular callback method invoked. And when I expand that, it has various objects. uh, First thing you have to see, it is looking like a JavaScript array, JavaScript object, because it starts with a curly brace, and object key and object values. So there is a key called type exists, and it's also saying the page container before change and something, and timestamp when it is, which microsecond it is, or millisecond it called. And there are a couple of other information. There are huge numbers. So I need to know. Okay, so it just give me an idea about what kind of event is triggered. Instead of this one, I would like to see what is UI, because there are two argument exists. Let me do it. This also gives me a JavaScript object. Let me expand one. Previous page, it doesn't know who's the previous page, which page it is going. That also it doesn't know. Mean starting and destination page information it has. Okay, so two page I'm expanding. What are all the other information it has? Two page contains an array, because 0th element, when I expand, there are huge number of things are there. Okay, this is quite significant here. If you notice this log, there is a key called ID, and it tells which page right now the page container loaded. Page 1. This page 1 is ID is nothing but this one. So it tells whatever page gets loaded, it notifies me which page is right now is loaded. So let me verify that part slightly in detail. Now I'm going to go to the second page, some data. Second page loaded. Now I have twice again it is printed, but I want to see the last one. It also contains a two-page destination. I'm expanding it. It also have one array called 0, or I mean 0th element. When I expand, there is an ID called settings page. So it does know whenever a new page is called, which page ID it is loading. So it is loading this particular settings page. So using this, I'm going to slightly play around here. First part, I understand multiple times this block is called. So in order to prevent UI dot to page, so it is called two page, right? In that two page is a containing, two page is an array typically, because the square box exists here. Array contains one index, mean even though the length of array is only one, but I need to make it 0 element in this ID. This is equals to settings page. Make sure the DOM ID matches. So this binder method gets called whenever something happens to a page container, and this always contains an array called two page. In that array, the first element contains a key called ID. That ID has the value of a DOM ID which the container is loading. So I'm multiple time it is called. That's the reason I'm putting if here. If the particular ID is called settings page, which is nothing but this one, then if the ID is settings page, then definitely this ID will also be there, because when this ID gets loaded, naturally this ID also would be there. So it is nothing but a parent. So it's all child nodes also would have got loaded there. So now I'm going to do just uh, okay. First part I'll just take it whether it is working or not, then we'll see. So when settings page is loaded, I'm trying to access a DOM called name field value and change the value, hard-coded value now, because I had to read the name field, but before I'm just checking whether it could be modified or not. So I don't need to type anything because you notice the hello appears here. So it means I have access to a DOM. That DOM could be manipulated, not like before, because before I was trying to access the DOM here, which typically did not work. But whereas this part works because it is making sure that DOM is available for usage, and after that we are safely modifying the particular DOM. When the DOM will be available only after the page is fully loaded. The second page should be fully loaded, then only that particular DOM will be available. Who will know this particular DOM is ready? This particular observer called page container before change. If you bind with this object keep receiving a notification whenever something happens to a page container. In one such a page container having an ID called settings page, we are very sure the second page is loaded and it is going to have a DOM, or of course the particular DOM would be there. Now I can safely modify the value and of course it will work. But I still not done yet. I wanted to display this data. So the previous data, we got it, and we have taken the data to a second page and there we are displaying. So the point here is the name field was the previous DOM, and of course this value has been taken to a second DOM safely because we are making sure settings page is loaded, then finally it is displayed. This is one fix if you are using an external page and where you need to send the data between the pages, for example from one page to another page. This is forward sending, for example from one page to second page you are sending the data. Sometime you may have to bring the data back from the second page to first page. So that how you will handle, I'll probably leave it to you, or maybe if you do not fix it I'll try to give the solution. It is same process reverse, but it gives you a vital idea that the point what we are trying to do is we are manipulating a DOM. The DOM was not ready in the previous condition because the DOMs were defined in the second page. So I need to make sure the DOM is available for a usage. So using a binder method called page container before change, exactly there is a method also exists like a ready, but I need to verify the jQuery document. I think it is called before change, something like that. But before that, so document gets notified whenever a page container having a different page. When the page is available ready, the data is sent from the second page. But this also may give you an error in a longer term because this particular name field, which is there in the page 1, whereas you are loading the second page called settings page. So this may be a redundant one, sometime it may not work because this DOM may have been killed or may not be available. So in such a situation exists, I'll also show you another option, but this will still work. use this standard, but there is one more way also exist. Document, where is the settings? Yeah. Routing the page transition through JavaScript instead of hyperlink. So I made it as a hash here. It means I'm not telling that HTML that which page it should go, but I'm going to tell it through a JavaScript now. For example, in this case, it doesn't know now where to go. So I'm going to do the routing using dollar mobile. I think it's not available. Dollar dot mobile mean, if you notice in jQuery, anything which has a prefix called dollar is jQuery methods or jQuery class. If anything has a dollar dot mobile mean, it is not jQuery class, it is jQuery mobile class. So it is only available in jQuery mobile, not available in jQuery, the base class itself. So it's slightly a longer one. Page container. Remember this having instance of a class. That's the reason it is having a lower, case and having a uppercase in between. And one more time, a method called page container, telling that change the page, inform the destination. Settings. What's that? Yeah, settings. So telling the page container, change the page to this page. So this is routing through JavaScript instead of handling through a hyperlink. Let me refresh. So the page went to a second page. Of course, I think we lost the transition. It's a normal transition now. So a page transition can also be added along with this. If you want to send a data, I will say make it as a content. The data what I want to send is this one. Comma transition slide up. This is the data which is being sent from page 1, and what kind of transition you want to do, slide up. So it is happening. So right now I'm doing it through a JavaScript instead of hyperlink. You may say, okay, hyperlink part was quite easier, but why is something so redundant or so difficult in JavaScript? Only if we need we can use this, but I would like to tell there is also an option available to do a transition. Okay, so now the data is sent, I need to receive the data here. That I need to find how it is coming. I'll just comment for some time. Here I need to read the log. Slide up came, the value is not coming, which I am going to read from the incoming data. It is having an object called options, so I'm expanding it. In the object there is a key called content exists that carries my information. So options content. UI options content. See, this is where your debugging part skill comes. I'm reading what kind of object it is coming at. Okay, I'm receiving an object. It has various keys. Each key has either string or another object or another array. In this case, toPage was an array because there is a square box exists. Option is an object. I expanded the option object and saw what is the key available where my data is coming up. It's called content because this is where I am tying up the data content. If I change it here also, you may need to change it. When content is available as the page is being changed, can also be accessed here. So now like to check. Now I have my data also populated. So the external page also now can carry the data between between the different external page and one page which is defined in the index. And not only to that, I can also handle the page change through JavaScript instead of a hyperlink directly giving the link. So I made it as a function. Whenever the button gets clicked, it calls a particular method called PageContainer, which is defined inside jQuery mobile object. Inside there is a PageContainer object. There is a method called PageContainer. This is an object, this is a method. So it tells the difference by having an uppercase here. That's the reason I always recommend keeping a camel casing so I can identify whether it is an object or function or class or whatever it is. So jQuery guys carried that particular legacy. So now through the function I'm telling, instructing change the page, this is the destination, carry the data, incoming data, and if you want to have a transition, give a transition name also here. So now this particular page transition happens through JavaScript instead of an hyperlink. See, I just kept it as a hash, it's a dead link, no link. But the link is overridden by JavaScript. When document is ready, whenever the page is or the particular button is getting clicked, it executes this method. Okay, so these are all the important points. So now page can take the data between one page to another. So whatever data I type could be taken to a second page. Now I'm going to extend this particular option. You have to create a simple app now, apart from doing this exercise. You have to put two input text, username, password, and one submit button. When a user enter admin, hard-coded value, don't need to save. So he has to enter username as admin, password also as admin. When he clicks submit, he should be taken to a second page. If he enters something other than this admin, user should not be taken to a second page. Maybe in the DOM itself or somewhere here, sorry, entered username is wrong, please enter the right username, something it should say. So of course using this technique you can do it. So somehow I made it so it can evaluate, you can validate, okay, what is the username password entered, and if the username password matches with some credential, the second page displays welcome admin or something like that. So it's just a simple a login page or something what I'm trying to say. So after finishing this exercise, you would have to create that one. I will verify, of course, and either as a group or as an individual, of course you can do it, and you have to make sure you complete that within today itself. It's a very simple example. Hereafter, that's what I said, our interaction will grow. Somehow or another way I will come to know whatever so far you understood, whatever so far you did not understand, by having a discussion with you guys. So already I'm having a couple of people asking questions, a lot of people remain silent, so I end up doing this kind of activity now. So let's see how many people will talk to me after this. Okay, so I'm going to upload this source code. Remember, still, even after so many explanations, if you see, very few lines of code only I have added, but lot of explanation I have given. What you need to understand, how I arrived at this solution. Second, how I picked this particular data type like UI.option.content, UI2page.id, how I arrived at it. So you have to see how I took these values and I made sure the page is taking the data from one to another. Maybe this is the only part which is coming in the jQuery documentation. For further reading, I would recommend jQuery API documentation, but you don't need to read it now, because I'll give a minified, a small version that only you can just you can refer instead of going through the entire page. As far as jQuery mobile documentation, it is very poor. Doesn't have a much of example. Explanation, because they keep changing and modifying the documentation also. So I'll also just tell you API.jQuery. This is the page container API. So if you notice, this is how I arrived. I found it. There are a couple of event exists. In this case, before event, if you notice, this particular function is there. But that's where they'll simply stop, and after that they won't give you any explanation. Example. For any programming you are trying to learn, I would recommend the base document, whatever they are giving, that is more than enough to learn. For example, for Android, developer.android.com. For jQuery, API jQueryMobile.com. So that is enough. Instead of buying a book and referring some other website or going through some other documentation, won't be helpful. So whatever the language or whatever the program you learn, just refer the particular developers who actually worked on it. So jQuery Mobile, the best resource would be the jQueryMobile.com itself. So it has the API documentation section, but maybe slightly too big, and may have a lot of deprecated or something, the part which is not working now. So they may have highlighted. Before I have, if you notice, even in my previous example, the same thing, this particular example comes somewhere. See, if you notice, this exercise I have taken jQuery shopping list, alternate approach, append page change, something is coming here. If you notice this example, I would have used a different page before change, but in this case page container change before change, something I did. Within this 2 months they deprecated that method. So this is how they change the document, and this is what we call keep up to date. We have to keep referring, keep learning, keep up to date with whatever the development is happening. So previously it was called page before change. Now the document, so for example, that also I'll tell you. So if I try to see page before change, if you notice, the version was added in 1.0 or deprecated in 1.4.3, and they are very clearly saying trigger twice during the first triggering of this event deprecated as of jQuery Mobile 1.4.3. This is what we are using. After one release comes in, this part won't work. So it will no longer be triggered in 1.6.0, the future releases. So it is deprecated. And what is the alternate solution? That is what they are saying, page container before change. So instead of that, use that. So it is very important to have a up-to-date a reference with the documentation. Same will is applicable for Android also. I remember I started Android development around 2009 or 8. I don't remember when I first started. Right now what I'm doing is entirely different thing. A lot of things got changed and being changed, and of course getting changed. Every new program or every other, for example, like a discussion happening between a program analyst, every time a new content I'm adding, and I just stop with whatever the latest document talks. Maybe you need to take it forward. It may be changing throughout. And there's absolute one big example also I can say. If you are not up to date, if you are very fine with the legacy thing, okay, this works, no? I will always use jQuery 1.4.3 alone. I won't use other thing. Then this will work. Yes, it will work. Tomorrow jQuery will add some other additional feature. For that you may need to upgrade to a other version. Most of your code won't work, and you will be having a lot of trouble afterwards. And also it is very clear, any developer who is not up to date, right now corporates are considering them as inactive resource, and a lot of examples there. Of course your next building is also doing that. So please be up to date, refer this document, and I'm going to upload the source code, and I already told what's my requirement. within this evening, make sure you finish it. If you have any question, you can ask me. But before, please make sure this example you complete.